So what happens when a society's religion becomes just an empty show? We're going to travel back about 2,800 years to meet a man named Amos. Now, he wasn't a priest, he wasn't a politician, he was a shepherd. But his roar against injustice was so loud, we can still hear it today. This is really the big question that drives everything Amos has to say, and man, is it still relevant. What happens when you have all the rituals, all the symbols of faith, but the heart of it all, the compassion, the justice, has been totally ripped out? So let's set the scene. Amos was a total outsider. He was from the southern kingdom of Judah, and God sent him with a message for the northern kingdom of Israel, which at the time was super wealthy and, frankly, pretty complacent. And let me tell you, Amos did not pull any punches. He spoke truth directly to power. I mean, listen to this metaphor he uses. It is absolutely searing. Bashan was this region that was famous for its sleek, fat, well-fed cattle. So Amos looks at the rich upper class just indulging in all this luxury while completely ignoring the poor, and he calls them cows of Bashan. Basically, they're just lazy, indifferent, and crushing the needy under their feet without even a second thought. Ouch. And this really shows you the stark contrast Amos was looking at. On one side, you've got the elite, literally lounging on beds made of ivory, drinking wine not by the glass, but by the bowlful. And on the other side, the poor getting steamrolled, and justice, it's just sold off to whoever has the most money for a bribe. It was a society where extreme luxury was built right on top of systemic injustice. Okay, so you're probably thinking these people must have been godless, right? Well, that's the twist. They were actually very religious. And that's what makes Amos's message so sharp. Their problem wasn't a lack of religion. It was a religion that had become completely and utterly hollow. On the surface, everything looked great. The worship centers were packed. People were bringing their sacrifices. They were paying their tithes. They were celebrating all the big feasts. They were checking off every single religious box. This is where Amos just exposes the whole charade with some seriously biting sarcasm. Bethel was their main place of worship. So he says, yeah, go on, come to Bethel and sin. He's saying that their very acts of worship had become sinful because their hearts weren't in it at all. Their actions were completely detached from their inner life. And this really gets to the core of the issue. It's kind of like wearing a wedding ring while you're being unfaithful. Sure, the outward symbol of commitment is there for everyone to see, but without the inward reality of love and faithfulness, it's just a lie. It's a phony gesture. So because the people just wouldn't listen, God sent a series of 5 escalating warnings. Think of them as 5 chances for them to wake up and change course before it was too late. First up, famine. And Amos has this vivid phrase for it. He calls it cleanness of teeth, because there was literally no food to get stuck in them. Then came a drought. The rains just stopped. After that, whatever they did manage to grow failed because of blight and mildew. Then came sickness, a plague. And finally, a catastrophic overthrow, something on the scale of the legendary destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And here's the kicker. After every single one of these disasters, God repeats this absolutely haunting phrase. Famine hits, yet you did not return to me. Drought hits, yet you did not return to me. It just hammers home their stubborn refusal to change. They just could not or would not connect their suffering to their own actions. Now, this is where the story takes a really shocking turn. Amos takes this popular hope that everybody shared, and he flips it into a terrifying prophecy against them. See, the people were all eagerly waiting for something they called the day of the Lord. In their minds, this was going to be the great day when God would show up, smash all their enemies, and prove to the world that they were the good guys. They were literally chanting, "Bring it on." And Amos just shatters that hope into a million pieces. He tells them, you think that day is going to be light and victory for you? No way. For you, it's going to be nothing but darkness and gloom. And then he just unleashes this rapid-fire series of images to show them just how inescapable this judgment will be. He says, imagine you're running for your life from a lion, and you escape only to run right into a bear. Or imagine you finally make it home, you think you're safe, you lean your hand against the wall to catch your breath, and a snake bites you. There's just no escape. And through all of this, Amos establishes this principle that we see echo throughout the entire biblical story. Judgment doesn't start with the outsiders. It starts with the people of God. They were going to be the first ones held accountable. But, and this is important, Amos isn't just about tearing things down. After he completely deconstructs their false religion, he builds up this powerful, beautiful vision of what God actually wants. And listen to this, because here, God speaks directly, in the first person. This isn't just Amos's opinion. This is God saying, I hate your religious festivals. I despise them. And that music, the noise of your songs, I won't listen. It is a complete, total, personal rejection of their empty rituals. So what's the alternative? Well, it all starts right here. Before you get to any rules or rituals, the foundation has to be a personal relationship. God's plea is so simple and direct. Seek me, and you will live. And all of this builds to this incredible, positive vision. After rejecting all their fake religion, this is what God actually wants instead. Not just a little trickle of justice, but justice that rolls down like a powerful, cascading waterfall. Not just a fleeting feeling of doing good, but righteousness that is like an unstoppable, ever-flowing river. The two key Hebrew words in that famous verse are mishpat and tzedakah. Mishpat is all about fairness, about the systems and structures of justice in a society. But that's not enough on its own. It has to be driven by tzedakah, which is this deep, burning compassion and kindness for other people. It's about a heart that drives just actions. You see, you can't have one without the other. And all of this leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? A world of ivory beds and rigged systems, it can feel eerily familiar. So if a prophet like Amos, an outsider with a burning message for justice in authentic faith, were to show up today, what would he have to say? And maybe more importantly, whose complacency would he be challenging?